Oh man. Well, this episode was appropriately titled, as we had many revelations indeed. The biggest being that reincarnation is real. Anghkooey is to remember what happened in your previous lives. And Jade and Tabitha finally remember. They finally understand that this isn't their first time, their first cycle, their first life. That this has all happened before, and they are part of an eternal cycle of destruction and recreation. In Fromville, the mechanics of reincarnation are intertwined with time travel. It's cyclical. In the real world, these concepts are commonly represented as the Ouroboros, symbolizing eternity and its ongoing cycle of death and rebirth. The forces of good and evil in Fromville also are intertwined, cyclical, commonly represented as yin and yang, symbolizing the balancing of opposite forces as part of a whole. Yin and yang in Ouroboros show how energy transforms. As one side grows, the other shrinks, yet they always form a complete whole. It's the same idea as the first law of thermodynamics. Let's break it down. Okay, so how do we get to the revelation of reincarnation? That Tabitha was Miranda, that Jade was Christopher? Well, to start, Tabitha shares with Jim and Jade what happened to her at the cellar last episode. This prompts Jade to find the common denominator, and that happens to be the creepy Anghkooey kids. They decide to go back to Victor's truck to see if maybe the kids come back and spark any other clues for them. They are convinced the next breadcrumb that they need to chase, the thread they need to unravel, is all about the bottle tree. And this is where Jim finally has his moment. Looking back to season 1 when Jim was way more invested in his question wall and engineering his way out of here, we come to find out that Jim already knew the answer.
Tell me you figured it out.
Well, I did. And the answer is 12.
He puts it together that the numbers in the bottles are meant to be musical notes. There are 12 notes in the chromatic scale. And what's interesting about that to me is that it's also eternal, cyclical. Where it starts, it ends, like rebirth. For example, if you look at a keyboard, the 12 notes of the scale are part of an octave, a set or cycle that starts on one note and ends on the same note, just a different version of it. It doesn't really matter which note you start on, you will always have the same notes, the same cycle. This is again another metaphor, like the Ouroboros and yin and yang. Where it starts, it ends. Everything is part of the same whole. Not to mention the light versus dark keys on the keyboard. But anyways, Mozart over here is able to immediately pick up the song, like he remembered it. And here is where Jim manifests his own death, so to speak. So far, things tied to music have not really come from the good forces of this place now, have they? The jukebox and the music box as prime examples. And because he warns Jade and Tabitha of this, they end up in the woods where he later dies. Before they kneels before them, she tells them to remember Anghkooey. And just like that, Jade thinks that his visions were different from what Tabitha saw, assuming his were all happening present day versus the Miranda visions that were happening in the past. But we see in the Civil War soldier scene a bright light when the vision stops, and I think he was actually time traveling to the past too, or rather he was having a vivid memory from a previous time, a previous life, now in the present. Maybe the dude crushed by the rock in the cellar and Spiky Eye over here were also memories of previous lives, previous times he failed saving the children. I also found another clue in season 1 about Jade's reincarnation.
Too bad you chose the town. I would have rode you like an alabaster dragon.
So while at first this just seems like a funny, nerdy comment, the dragon seems to me to be another reference to the Ouroboros. Also, a quick Google search shows that this is a Magic the Gathering reference. This card you can play over and over, and if it dies, it will later have rebirth, resurrection, and it can be played again. And while we're looking at this scene with Trudy, take a look at her shirt. Remember how Jim said 12 is the answer? On her shirt are the signs of the zodiac, which there are 12 of them, and each sign represents either yin or yang, a balance between the two. And in another scene, we also see Jade mention that he was 12 when his grandma died and he had to move from France.
She died when I was 12. I had to come back to the States, live with my uncle.
There's a lot more to dig into as it relates to the number 12, the zodiac, and Fromville that we'll have to save for another video. Okay, so back to the point here about reincarnation. How is this intertwined with time travel? Forever happening at the same time, existing here for eternity?
Schrodinger's cat.
What?
Schrodinger's cat, that's the paradox. So you put the cat in the box, and you close the box, as long as you never open it again.
The cat is theoretically alive and dead at the same time. I know what Schrodinger's cat is.
Okay, so we're the cat. This place here is the box.
As Tom says, Fromville is the box. Everything that happens is happening at once. Time is not a linear path. It's not a calendar of past dates and future dates. Just like Schrodinger's cat is dead and alive at the same time, the Ouroboros is too, destroying itself while creating itself anew. Also, if you really think about it, Jade and Tabitha remembering their previous lives is time travel. They are able to live the past through these vivid memories and visions, now, in the present time. The paradox, though, can they affect the past from the future? Can they save the original children?
This is a paradox. That's the problem.
Speaking of paradox, Julie has the revelation that when she was at the ruins, she was time traveling that entire time. And she thinks she can go back and save Tien Chen, try to fix things. Ethan here explains to Julie that she's a story walker, not a story changer. And she can't just go rewriting the story because it's already been written in stone. He seems to think Fromville is on a closed timeline. There is only one version of what happens. Like the grandfather paradox. You can't go back in time and kill your grandfather because then you wouldn't exist to go back in time to begin with. But Julie isn't on the same page as Ethan is on this story. Bringing it back again to Schrodinger's cat, maybe this is similar, like the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. In that theory, there are infinite possible endings to a story, and every change creates a new timeline, a new version of Fromville. He is in the woods, back where it all began, back at the RV.
I think this is when it happened.
Okay.
This is where it happened.
Is this really where it happens?
All 3 times this was said, it was a person from the future talking about a past event that they are actively engaged with in the present. A little mind melting, right? Anyways, so Jim's foreshadowing was right. Something bad happens now. Because they played that song, because they remembered, the man in yellow from Miranda's painting makes his debut. And it's revealed that he was the voice on the radio that spoke to Jim back in season 1.
Your wife shouldn't be digging that hole, Jim.
Your wife shouldn't have dug that hole, Jim.
I think this also reveals that the man in yellow is the big bad boss of this place. Perhaps the yin to the boy in white's yang. When Tabitha was digging that hole and Jim was building that radio tower, Boyd and Sarah were also getting closer to the lighthouse. And it made him mad that they were getting closer to the answers, to remembering.
It's angry now.
Do you think we made it angry?
What are you talking about?
That storm came out of nowhere, and the way the lights exploded, it's almost like we made something angry.
Also, Julie's hairdo was purposely different. Is this just to show us that she's from the future? Or maybe this is meant to be different timeline, different parallel universe Julie? Comment below your thoughts on this one here, because I'm a little bit confused on which path this is going, but to me, it seems more like we're on closed loop timeline. Whew, okay, well, everything that's been happening in the Matthews family orbit has been some really heavy stuff, but boy, does it get heavier. Before we get to that, though, a side plot was teased in this episode surrounding Randall and Mari. We see Randall doing his jail yard workout routine and he gets hit by the cicada again. It's been non-stop, horrifying torture for him. So how can you blame him when dude tries to use a defibrillator on his head to make it stop? Lucky for him, or maybe not so lucky, I don't know, but Mari stops him in time. And it's finally revealed that things aren't so happy-go-lucky for her either. She's just doing a much better job at hiding her pain. It'll be interesting to see where they go with her plotline next season. Do you think she'll play a bigger role? Maybe become a story walker as well? We also have a short scene with Victor and Henry where it's revealed that Victor made a gravesite for Miranda and Eloise. And damn it, why do these two together always make me cry? They have a touching father-son moment, but what really stood out to me was this comment about Eloise. Or, hear me out, maybe she's the dog. I mean, I know it's an off-the-wall theory, but I wouldn't be surprised if they introduced shapeshifters or other weird mythological stuff next season. Either way, I think Eloise is alive. What do you think? Okay, back to the heavy stuff. We are taking on a hell of a ride with Boyd's crew and their search for Fatima. Ellis suspects that Elgin has been Sarah'd, aka he's under the influence of this place in a very bad type of way. Ellis goes to Boyd and Kenny to game plan on how to handle this, and I must admit, I was a little bit surprised they went to Sarah immediately. I mean, it's a smart move to try to learn from her, but also, why wouldn't you just secretly put a tail on Elgin? Don't let him know that you're onto him and just follow his ass to wherever Fatima is. Instead, they confront him awkwardly like they're hosting an intervention. They try to see if they can appeal to Elgin's logic by having Sarah remind him about their convo in the church back when he first got here, and talk about what happened to her in this place. But Elgin is devout in his belief, his faith that this is good, that Kimono Lady is an angel. Okay, dude. Well, this isn't the only biblical reference we see this episode. More on that in a bit. First things first, they need Elgin to spill the beans on Fatima's location. Boyd is ready to go full Saeed the torturer on Elgin's ass in order to get answers.
That you weren't going to let this place break you. If you do this place is one.
He is no longer playing the role of protector. He is passing out judgment and punishment as if he were God of this place. So let me get back to the biblical references. Obviously, the titles of these last two episodes were in reference to the book of Revelation. Is this Boyd playing the role of false prophet? Maybe the talismans aren't actually good, false idols, seemingly a miracle to these townspeople, but actually a way to manipulate the people into following Boyd to make the wrong decisions, to do the work of evil. This is an interesting concept to explore. If any of you listening know more about the Bible and how this could be a connection, a real working theory, please comment below. Let me know what I'm missing. Okay, well, back to Boyd the Butcher. Right before he's about to go to town on Elgin, the camera snaps a photo of his lake house. And while Elgin sees this as reinforcing the promise of going home, Boyd sees it as yet another taunt. His boat ain't even there.
You need to decide going to be from now on.
It's only broken, and Father Khatri is right. There's no coming back from this. And I know y'all hate Acosta, but thank God she showed up to put a stop to this madness. I mean, look, I admit I'm having a little bit of a hard time finding my sympathy bone for this kid, but come on, man.
Not like this. Not like this.
While everyone is arguing downstairs, Sarah takes matters into her own hands and she goes to finish what Boyd started. Seems like to me she too watched Ace Ventura as a kid, and if good old Ace taught us one thing about getting a perp to talk, you gotta fuck with some eyeballs. Here we have another connection with the Bible and her reference to her Sarah is irredeemable, that she can't repent and be forgiven. Boyd led her to make the wrong decision. Hell, Boyd has everyone just going along with this crazy shit. Donna, Kenny, Ellis, I really hate that Sarah has given up, has embraced this evil side of her. But she does get Elgin to talk, and they finally find out Fatima's location. However, just like the voices were taunting before, I think it's a little bit too late. Fatima is full-term pregnant now, baby kicking and everything. But before so we have our final revelation. Boyd goes down the hatch into the tunnels. He has to see what the fuck came out of Fatima, what the hell Kimono Lady is up to. And all I can say is what tape drawing we saw when Tabitha dug that hole. Is this depicting the rebirth of these monsters? How their gift of the upcoming weeks, exploring some of these topics more thoroughly, as well as sharing more about my theories on this place. So please consider subscribing and throwing that like. I also want to hear your theories, so please comment below. Until next time, toodles!